Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. And today I will, as you can see from the title, I am going to be reviewing Modern Warfare 2, the latest installment of the Call of Duty franchise. So I have a lot of mixed feelings about this game because on one hand, the campaign was very fun. I liked the story. I thought I had a really good time of playing it. And then the whole game released last or 2 weeks ago, and I feel like it's been a bit of a dumpster fire in a lot of ways. But first, let's go into the campaign. So the campaign I played on, a week early, so I pre-ordered, and I really loved it. Like there are so many great missions within um, the the game itself. I love the callbacks and the Easter eggs to previous Call of Duties. Even Call of Duty Ghost is like called back in there. So I really love that. The gameplay is always super solid. They threw in a lot of. I like how they threw in a lot of different elements. I feel like it's one thing that Call of Duty developers do very well is that they do definitely innovate. How they do the campaign. I think one thing that they introduced in like earlier games was like the whole breaching sequence where like you throw a charge on a door, you stack up next to the door with your not with your buddies, but with the AI, and then you rush in, you get the slow mo mode. Love that stuff. It was always really fun, really engaging, and in this one it was a kind of bummer we didn't get any of that, but they integrated, a lot more sneaking missions where you had to gather materials and make different weapons and equipment. I really liked that. Um, I honestly thought that was actually a lot of fun. Then they have then implemented like the backpack system within the story mode, which I definitely liked. Now we can because like in there you can carry multiple different types of grenades and things like that. You could smoke out the enemy and whatnot. So I thought that was a lot of good stuff. It was definitely fun. There were some bugs that I put on my TikTok and even YouTube Shorts, but aside from all that stuff, it was cool. Like I really liked it. The game looked great. I mean, in terms of graphics, I thought it just looked real good, even from day one. And like, I didn't even have my settings adjusted correctly. I just kind of used the default, whatever the game told me to do. And it was running, extremely smooth at like, well, I was only for some reason doing it at 60 FPS because I was stupid and didn't know how to set up my settings correctly. But it was maxing it out. It wasn't going anything below 60. So at least, at the very least, it wasn't that much of a resource hog for now. You know, um, Now that I actually have my setup, kind of a little bit more correct, I'm still getting a good 120, 130 frames within multiplayer, even on ground war and invasion, where there's like a lot bigger maps, and what is probably perceivably going to be um, part of Al Mazrah and Warzone 2.0 because like all those points of interest are in Warzone 2.0. So we'll see. I think I'll be pretty good for that. But I do kind of have a rather semi high end PC, so we'll see how that goes. Um, but yeah, overall, in terms of at least the campaign, it's very good, very polished. I enjoyed it. Now, when it comes to multiplayer, I will say that it's a hit or miss depending on how you look at it. For me, I think the gameplay, the guns are very smooth. I think that the guns look good, they feel good. There's a lot more intricacies to them. Some things are kind of ridiculous in terms of the progression. Like I do not the progression of weapons is makes absolutely no sense to me. Like it's basically forcing you to play every single or use every single gun. And right now, so for example, if I want to get a particular attachment, and if you're wondering why my graphics look weird, I'll get to that later. So if I want this, say this attachment, the Dark KX30, I have to unlock it by leveling the STB 556 to level 15, right? So I have to play another gun just to get this attachment. Now, okay, that's not the worst thing in the world, but let's look at what the STB 556 is. So here it is. Oh, it's the AUG, basically, right? The AUG is what I have to unlock, but I don't get this gun until I get to level 41. Granted, I'm at 30 right now, so getting level 41 isn't going to be super long. You know, I can probably get that within a week or so, or maybe a few days. But just to get that attachment, I have to first level up to get this gun. Then I have to level up this gun just to get that attachment, assuming I even want it. I think that's absolutely insanity. Like, why can I not just continue leveling up my M4 just to get the attachments? Like, this is absolute bonkers, you know? And it goes for almost every single one of these. Some of these not so much, but then there's like these ones where it's locked, but it doesn't tell me when I can get it, because I already have the weapon level at 20 out of 20. So how the hell am I supposed to get this? Like, do I just keep playing this? Like, do I just keep leveling up this gun and I'll just eventually get it, or do I have to level something up? And so some of these things makes absolutely no sense. And here's the funniest thing I found. I was just looking at attachment the other day, and I've noticed that a lot of these bipods, if you look at the pros, it's a bipod mount. Cons, aim down sight speed, which is like pretty normal, and like whatever the cons are. But the pros is just basically having the mount. Like, is that it? Is there like aim stability, recoil control? Like, what is the deal here? I mean, this one has recoil steadiness, but these three, literally the only perk is just to have the mount. I mean, I'm sure it does something, because like you can see in like the little box here, it says, okay, better accuracy, better recoil control. But I feel like, did someone just forget to write what all the pros out to be? Like, you know, there needs to be a little bit more going on here. And I thought that was like really funny, like why that was even, like, that was just completely missed there. And but yeah, I the progression system just makes absolutely, like, it forces you to really just use every single gun. And the thing is, not everyone can do that. Like, you know, some people are just more AR friendly. Some people are more sniper friendly, right? Some people maybe just like SMGs all day long. Or maybe they're not really good at sniping. Maybe they're not really good at using shotguns and rushing, because let's face it, like shotguns, you can't hit someone from far away. You're gonna have to be up close and personal. Some players are just not very good at that. So I feel like it really forces people to really grind out those certain weapons if you really want to use them. And, you know, and let's face it, like, probably the majority of multiplayer is going to switch to Warzone. Like, at least half of them are going to switch to Warzone. So depending on what the meta and all that, like the best guns are in Warzone, people are going to have to either come back in here and like really grind it out if they didn't do it already. And yeah, so it's gonna kind of suck, and it doesn't look like there is any form of, like, you know, shipment type of map. Granted, there is invasion, which is like a cheap way of grinding out weapons, because you can just shoot the ads all day. But it's really, at that point, you're not really having fun, you know. So but yeah, so the weapon correction is just kind of ridiculous if you ask me. Right now there is no battle pass, so I can't even get anything. The store doesn't even barely works. There's only one thing in here, which is kind of lame. There's no The one thing, other things I don't like is that there's no like records where, like, at least in Modern Warfare one, there was something to like look at how many wins you have, what's your KD, how many captures you got, like all these stats about like just how well you're progressing in the game. This has none of that. Like it has achievements, which is like whatever, but it doesn't tell you how many kills you have, how many games you played, how many games you've won out of the games you played. It doesn't tell you anything, and I guess like, yeah, it promotes a more casual, friendly, like, oh, you're not always constantly trying to improve your KD. It's like, why not? Why wouldn't you want to promote people getting good at this game? Or at least like tracking how many wins they have, so that they understand like, hey, what games am I good at? What games am I not good at? Like, are people just supposed to, kind of memorize it? And there's so many. The funny thing is like, there's so many Twitter posts and like Reddit posts about like, oh yeah, I have like 10,000 kills. My KD is 12. I have a 12 KD and I've called in like 40 nukes. I would prove it to you, but there's no way to track like my actual progress. So you just have to take my word for it. No, it's that trust me, bro, like kind of source right there. And I think it's really funny because why didn't they put this in? Like it baffles me on what the decision is. Other things that like really drive me crazy for me as a PC player right now, there is a huge problem with our settings not being saved. Now, it's not affecting every PC player, but it's affecting enough people to the point where when I created a Reddit post about it, apparently I wasn't the only one. Now, granted, like it didn't go viral or anything like that, and it's not like a ton of people are also experiencing this. But, the way I always see it, it's like, okay, even though there's only been about, a handful of users who have actually experienced this, or at least a handful of terms of who posted, right? So for myself, there's not a whole ton of upvotes. There's only 10 comments, so it's like, by all means, not something very significant. But there's at least, out of the 10 comments, there's at least 8 of them who are saying like, oh, I have the same issue. And for me, with errors like and bugs like these, like, okay, one is just a fluke, right? Like one is just if one person, and if no one, let me start over. If it was only me that had this issue, then it's probably just my computer. Before you people say like, oh, you have a whack computer, that's probably the problem. Okay, like if it's just me, then yeah, my computer is the problem. If it's 2, it's a coincidence. 3, that's when it's clearly a more widespread issue. Because at that point, if 3 or more people start having the same issue, that's when we're talking about like there's a longer trend. Granted, okay, like I said, there's not a whole lot of people that comment and saying, oh, I have the same issue. Even though there's only like 8 people that commented, I can guarantee you there's probably at least 10x that have the issue, if not 100 or maybe 1,000x, that actually have the issue, but just haven't found my post. And I know that seems a little bit of a stretch, but I can guarantee you that's a big deal, because even when I did try to Google a solution, there were a ton of people who had a similar issue, but it was coupled with, oh, look, I can't save my progression in the campaign mode. So clearly there is something going on within the PC world that there is an issue. I mean, and even consoles, like they're having issues with installing correctly. There are videos out about that already. So there are clearly a lot of bugs here. And back to the saving the settings thing. So not only does it not save my settings correctly, it also like changes itself to a completely different setting on things that I never even touched. Now, if you probably saw earlier, what some of my graphics look terrible, right? Like if I just go in here, like if you look at the character, at least from my screen and even from my recording here, it looks very, very pixelated. It looks like it's missing layers. And you're probably like, whoa, what the hell is wrong with your computer? Like, what is going on here? Well, let me show you what's going on here. When I go into the graphics settings, a lot of the one part where a lot of my settings, like they just decided to completely screw me over, is where the quality is. For some reason, the game decided to, my render resolution is only at 33% of my full resolution. If I put it at 100, which is my 1440p monitor, and apply the settings, and I come back out here, you can see it looks 10 times better, right? Like it looks, I mean, still kind of funky low here and there, but that's because my other graphic settings, but like it definitely looks a lot different, right? But for some reason, every time I exit the game and come back in, the my PC decides to switch this to 33%. I don't know why it does this. I can only surmise that like there is a very, very, very dumb bug where settings just don't save. And there's a similar bug back in Warzone 1 or Modern Warfare 1 where something similar happened, and the only way to save your settings was to actually go into your documents and your like Call of Duty folder and change your settings file to like read only and not read only, so that it will actually save your actual settings here. And that was like completely stupid. Like other little things that like I would set up, like for me, like I don't even often play in 120 FOV. I play at 110. And then there's other things in here that I like to change out. Also, audio settings, like generally I put the volume on 0, but because I put it on 70 previously, it just sticks at 70, even though I have to come back in here and change this every single time. In terms of my key bindings, I change out a lot of my different key bindings, so that's a little bit more familiar. Again, I have to come back in here every single time and change this out because my settings just don't save to whatever I set it to the last time. And it's absolutely stupid. Like and more than one person is finding this to be an issue. Another stupid thing in terms of settings and all that stuff, if I go into co-op mode now, let's like note here, right? My keyboard and mouse, like I have my control key as my change stance, so that I don't have one button to change my stance. So if I want to go prone or if I want to crouch, like it's only one button, right? If I go into the co-op mode, which this has completely different settings. Look at my keybinds. Change stance, no longer control. Instead, it goes back to prone. And if I want to change this, right? Like I just changed this setting from one to the other. If I leave the co-op lobby and I come back and I go back in there, oops. Look, if I change it, this somehow reverts back. Every time I go into co-op, it completely reverts all my key bindings. So every time if I want to play co-op, I have to come in here and change all my key bindings to what my preferred key bindings are. And if I leave and come back, just like let's just say like I play a co-op mission. There's only 3. I mean, I play one, go play some multiplayer, and I come back. I have to change everything. Like this is so stupid. I don't understand why. Like I feel like all this stuff would have been caught if friggin' if Activision, they just had a decent QA team. If they just had the QA a decent QA team, look for all this stuff. Granted, none of these bugs are like detrimental, right? They're not game breaking. They're not making me freeze or like, they're not hard locking the game itself. These are obviously very soft issues, but like these should have been addressed because like this really ruins the play experience. Like the last thing, like me as a person who works a normal 9 to 5 and I would just want to, by the time I get off work, I just want to come home and play the game. I don't want to have to come in every single time and change my settings so that, they're set up in a way that's beneficial or that the way I like to play. Like I shouldn't have to do that every single time. I should just be able to log in here, hit quick play or whatever and just start game. Like I should only have like 5 to 6 button presses before I get into a game, minus my social network. But no, now I have to click an extra like 30 to 40, buttons because I have to change up my settings again just so that I can get this game to play the way I want it to. It's absolutely ludicrous. Like this is the kind of stuff that like you need, like is it something that's so detrimental that you need to delay a game for? Probably not, right? But there are enough bugs in this game that they should have delayed the game for. Like my bugs are whatever, right? Like they're superficial at the end of the day. But there are a lot of other bugs with this game on console, on PC, doesn't even matter what, where they should have just delayed it. I think even a week or at least a month just to fix all this stuff and polish it, just to get the extra elbow grease in. It would have saved them so much more headache. But, Activision being a company that it is, they have to get those Q4 numbers. They have to release this game in order to make investors happy because heaven forbid, the shareholders get a little pissed off and, they don't realize like, they don't care about the product. They just care about the numbers, which, arguably Modern Warfare 2 doing great numbers, 800 million in freaking like 3 days. That's shocking. Like that's so much money. No other COD has like made this type of money in the past. And because or at least like not in that kind of record. The last one was the Modern Warfare 3. So they're very excited, but it comes with all these bugs and all these problems, and I feel like this bad press, like, at the end of the day, like I'm sure Bobby Kotick and like Infinity Ward or whoever the hell is making this game and all the investors don't give a shit. They're just like, yeah, whatever. Some people have bugs. I don't give a crap. Some people have crashes. I don't give a crap because we just saw 800 million. We just saw that nine-figure revenues revenue that just came in. I don't give a damn what other what players are giving a crap about because they already bought the game. They don't give a shit, right? So it's not like half the people are gonna return the game at the end of the day. So for me, I'm gonna keep playing this. It just totally bums me out that like there's still a lot of issues with this game. Like at the end of the day, they needed to do a better job. Frankly, like, I was kind of happy that with Microsoft taking over, that they're gonna, they're not gonna do a COD every single year. Instead, they're gonna push it out to like every other year, maybe even every 2 years, so that they can punch out better quality games, right? So I think that's great. Like we don't need a COD every freaking year. Like at the end of the day, yes, it's a cash cow for Activision, but when you do quantity more than quality, this is kind of crap you get. You get a UI that makes absolutely no sense. Like the old UI worked great. I don't know why they had to make it so that like our loadouts are through here, and then it's like this kind of like this loadout is made more, I feel like, for like a tablet, or some kind of touch screen, which no one plays on. It's more like a touch screen scenario where like, oh yeah, if I just click on this stuff with my fingers, like it makes sense. But in terms of it's just like a normal UI for people on controller or mouse and keyboard, it's not very user friendly. Like I feel like they had a UX designer that had probably a lot of good ideas, and they just like basically told him to F off. And all the UX designers are like, fine, like all the everything, like how this is all arranged and like how all these menus are set up is like done by just programmers who have like zero idea, who have like never done UX design in their life. They make things from a programmer's perspective, not from a UX designer's perspective, because those are two, and I promise you, those are two completely different things, because a programmer's mind is not the same as a UX designer. UX designer and UX people, they try to make sure that a user experience which what UX means, is positive. A programmer just wants the sucker to work. Doesn't care about how it looks necessarily. Some do, some don't. And clearly they didn't here, because they're just like, oh, this looks kind of cool because it's a mirage, or like, kind of like a mosaic thing going on here. Like, we like it. But they don't really care about how it's just so clunky, getting into the weapons. It's just, before we would just have our loadouts right here listed out. Now I have to click an extra step just to go into the loadouts. It makes no sense. Like, why do you keep putting up more and more barriers between me and what I want to do? It's absolutely bonkers to me. So anyways, I mean, it's only been a few days since the game came out, a week or two. So I will say that there's a lot of kinks to be worked out here. So, I mean, I would guess that in a month or so that this game will not be the same in terms of like the bugs will be reworked. But like the way it launches now, it's just not great. It's just not great. So anyways, that's just my take on this. Let me know what you guys think of Modern Warfare 2. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you think it should have been delayed? Let me know in the comments. Please like, subscribe, do all that jazz. I will talk to you guys later. Take it easy.